And now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Inga Arlauskaitė, doctoral student of Vilnius University, and her presentation is on Soviet Army in Lithuania, consumption of resources. I would like to add is that we usually invite Arlauskaitė to deliver presentations at the workshops arranged for Lithuanian teachers. And today, as I already mentioned, her topic of presentation is Soviet Army in Lithuania, consumption of resources. Good morning, thank you. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to attend this important event, and today I'm going to deal with the Soviet Army in Lithuania. Perhaps in the beginning I will just say, I will share my experiences when half a year ago I was in Moscow and took a taxi driven by a lady, and she started asking me, why were you so dissatisfied with the Soviet Union? And certainly I had a very good answer, but the first argument I gave her was the existence of Soviet army on the territory of Lithuania without any legal grounds. A lot of articles and papers have been written on this topic. Relevant legislation has been adopted in Lithuania. And before I start speaking about the Soviet army, I will just make an introduction and say that trying to understand Lithuanian grounds, Lithuanian land for military means, we have to keep in mind the Soviet doctrine and political leaders sitting in the Kremlin at that time. Therefore, I would like to point to three main changes in the doctrine. First would be Stalin doctrine, when the Soviet troops were deployed in certain territories. The number of troops was regularly increasing, and local authorities were required to satisfy all the demands of the troops. The second change in the Soviet doctrine I would like to point to is the pressure in the relations between the army and Nikita Khrushchev when he started his reforms, which led to reduction in the amount of troops, as well as the reduction of military budget. And Lithuania was not an exception in this case. And the third period, speaking about the doctrine, was Leonid Brezhnev's period, which is often referred to as the golden age of the military, because then the Soviet army was able to compete even with the US army. It had a highly modernized armaments and ammunition, and the costs related to military maintenance were constantly growing. The changes in the Soviet doctrine actually had a direct impact on the costs of Lithuania for maintaining the Soviet troops on its territory. The main fields I would like to mention would be allotment of plots of land for satisfying the military needs. Second, satisfying social needs of the military. Use of human resources for Soviet army and the use of local resources for the needs of Soviet troops. The duty of Lithuanian government was to give everything necessary to satisfy the needs of the army. Now I will try to look into each of these interests more in detail. First of all, plots of land. Starting from 1945, on the basis of the Soviet doctrine, all the military units were settling in. They needed firing grounds, storages, premises. So the general of the army or an ordinary commander had the right to send a letter with a requirement for a certain number of hectares of land, no matter whether it was a health resort, Palanga, Karklė on the seaside, Rūdininkai forest. Lithuanian authorities had no right to refuse. And the army would get the plots of land without any condition, any resistance. Certainly, during the process, the local residents had to be moved away, and even in some documents we can read that the peasants had to receive a compensation. Nothing, in fact, was remunerated. In the period of 1962-1986, the use of the plots of land changed significantly, because in that period the military requested for plots of land, for permits for the construction of special objects, for cutting wood and expansion of the territories of military units. For instance, if you imagine the northern town of Vilnius, Šiaurės miestelis, it seemed to the military leadership that the territory allocated to them is too small, and they demanded to expand it without taking into account that this was actually the capital city of Lithuania. I made a diagram. Where is the laser? Okay, here we have hectares, dozens, thousands of hectares, and here we have the year. So you can see the dynamics of allotment of plots of land and how it all was changing in the course of time. You see, the curve is going up, adding a few kilometers each year, and I really didn't expect that the slide will not be quite visible, but this was an example of a letter demanding to allot a plot of land for the military, including all the requirements, and this letter used to be sent to the chairman of the Council of Ministers. Preparation for a military parade in Vilnius. This is how our Gedimino Avenue looked like. And what we had in Lithuania at that time. The area of military territories in Lithuania amounted to more than 55 hectares of land. Every year, roughly 1% of Lithuanian territory was allotted to the needs of military, and the occupational territory was using about 6% of the whole territory of Lithuania, which is 68,000 of hectares in 49 years. Not to mention the fact that precious forest areas were cut, the ground was contaminated with all kinds of chemical materials, and the traces left after the Soviet army was withdrawn can be still felt today. We can see the relicts, the remains of the former military premises and other things. Social needs and satisfying social needs of the military included a living space for the military and their families. And as you can imagine, after the war, Lithuania needed a lot of effort to stand up again on its feet, and it had a problem regarding the living space, providing living space for its own citizens. But when Soviet officers arrived in Lithuania together with their families, usually a number of problems were solved by a very simple order from Moscow ordering to provide privileges to the Soviet officers, to the Ministry of Defense, and only then the Lithuanian families and Lithuanian residents were able to hope for some premises. There were requests that appeared inadequate as far as the living space was concerned, because the appetite of the military was growing, and having in mind the structural crisis in the 80s, when the construction scale started to slow down, became the reason for disagreements of the occupational army and the Lithuanian Soviet leadership. In 1962, when Nikita Khrushchev started sharp reduction of the military, 500,000 in 62, 200,000 in the next coming year, the Soviet officers were free to travel across Lithuania and choose the place they would like to live. Lithuanian territory was considered quite attractive for this military leadership, and as a rule, they wanted to settle down in biggest Lithuanian towns, Vilnius, Kaunas, and Klaipėda, and this made the Lithuanian Soviet government to allot a certain area to satisfy social needs of the military. As you can see, this is a document from 1967, a letter to the Council of Ministers, which requires to a certain living space for the military in Vilnius, Kaunas, Šiauliai, Panevėžys, Kėdainiai, Klaipėda, Telšiai, Tauragė, and Nemenčinė for the military and their families. And you can see the amounts allocated for these purposes during the period. For instance, 190,000 of square meters of space in Vilnius, and so on and so forth. Another document I wanted to show you, again a letter to the chairman of the Council of Ministers by Soviet general, stating that the army intended to build a few blocks for the military purposes, but due to the lack of material, the attempt failed, and now, therefore, he requested to allocate 3 high blocks of flats for the military needs. Some of the requests were really inadequate, as I have already mentioned, and certainly the social needs of local citizens had also to be satisfied. Although until 1962, there were many cases when local people were pushed aside just in order to provide living space for the military and their family members. It was quite tough for the Lithuanian government at that time, trying to maneuver between the need to satisfy social needs of Lithuanian population and Soviet military, not to mention the needs of retired officers. So the problem was really getting worse each year. A photo of Soviet officer's family in Vilnius. So, as I have already mentioned, speaking about what kind of resources were required, so first of all, it was the living space and plots of land. However, there were other resources required. For instance, organization of the activities of military units, preparation of mobilization means, creation of mobilization reserve, and so on. Certainly, roads, communications, vehicles were among the requirements for Lithuanian government. Roads and bridges. On the basis of the Soviet doctrines, you are supposed to be prepared for military actions, so good roads and bridges were necessary for a quick redeployment of Soviet troops. For instance, there were requirements to reinforce the bridge or to build a new road, let's say to Kėdainiai, whatever, give an explanation that the military unit had to be redeployed.
Aerodrominės aikštelės buvo numatytos 6 Lietuvoje. Buvo reikalaujama tiesiog prie pagrindinių kelių įrengti lėktuvų kilimų ir nusileidimų aerodrominės aikšteles. Ir būtent Lietuvos
airport sites to be arranged close to the main roads. And even nowadays, when you go, let's say, when you drive along the way to Biržai, there are a few landing sites that were intended for military plane landing during the war. It was the requirement to provide all kinds of equipment and vehicles like tractors from collective farms, and the percentage required was 50%, which raised the satisfaction of Lithuanian people. However, the local authorities were wise enough to send the worn-out equipment to the sites, and therefore complaints were heard that these vehicles were not able even to reach some of the sites. They encountered technical problems on the way. Probably you can't see the document clearly. This is a letter regarding a road requirement from the army commander to pave one road on the territory of Lithuania, and when the works were started, the requirement to stop the works, to stop the paving work, stopped for the reason that the vehicles would not be able to go to the fields if the road is paved. So what is most important is that provision of the military required huge resources of the Soviet Lithuania. The Ministry of Defense of the USSR had its own plans that were not coordinated with the local government or harmonized with the local possibilities. Usually the plans were made for a 5-year period, and when making mobilization plans, local government had to make calculations for the future resources. Conscription to the Soviet army. Some words about that. As I've already mentioned, the Soviet army acted illegally on the territory of Lithuania, and young people tried to boycott mobilization to the Red Army already in 1944-1945, and this is how the system of conscripts registration was started in the Soviet Lithuania. The mobilization was illegal in legal terms. However, a priori, all the citizens were considered Soviet citizens, and everyone was supposed to feel the duty to serve in the Soviet army. Deserting from Soviet army was quite frequent. Repressions were applied in such cases. And the level of Russian language of conscripts was also set, and the local authorities were held responsible for teaching young people Russian. Local government was also responsible for providing vehicles to transfer, mobilize and transfer new conscripts were needed. Young people were not taken as conscripts to the army if they didn't have a secondary education. And the categories of conscripts were narrowed or widened depending on the military conflict doctrine. The number of conscripts was constantly growing. In 1971, as many as 292,000 of conscripts were taken, whereas in 3 years' time, the number was already 369,000. This is a photograph showing how conscripts were taking part in different activities, civil activities. And I will stop here now. Thank you.